Hey, everybody. Welcome to the REDX podcast. I'm Curtis Fenn. I get to host today, which is a great thing because I've got an amazing guest, David Childers from Keeping Current Matters. And we're going to have a great conversation about the market and what's going on, potential market crashes or not crashes. We're going to get into that stuff. Before we get going, I just want to remind everybody this is a participatory event. We want you to ask questions. I think David has a whole bunch of information. So if you have questions about what he's talking about, post them in there because we will get to them on the show, or we'll follow up with you with your questions afterwards. We'd love everybody, if you are on Facebook, if you're on YouTube, if you're wherever you're viewing the podcast, go ahead and click subscribe. That way you get notifications of all of our upcoming podcasts. We'd also want you to join the conversation we're having on Facebook, a Facebook group called the Lead Gen Conversation, where we have a lot of podcasts just like this, but we also have a whole bunch of conversation about the top of the funnel of your business. We're talking about how to get leads, how to convert those leads, and how to get more business. So with that, David, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to be on and looking forward to this. It's been on the calendar to get the chance to spend time with you. And, I was thinking about as we were getting ready for this, I'm grateful for, and we're big fans of REDX, and I'm grateful for the relationship we've had over the years. Certainly going back quite a while here at Kcm, we've been, sort of partners with you and with REDX. And I just want you to know we're grateful for that. We're grateful for organizations that we're able to do that with and have long-standing relationships with. So it's fun to be on today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We're going to have a little bit of a nice contest here, Dave, because I feel the same way about KCM, and we're at about 120 employees here at REDX, and most of, if not all, have heard, if you would just log into this one blog every day, right? Keeping Current Matters, and just read their blog every day, you will know more about what's going on in real estate than 99% of real estate agents out there. Right. And that might offend some people, but it's true. I mean, there's such great resources to look at every day. And so, yeah, we have had a long relationship. I think I first met Steve back in 2007 and have got to work with him and Bill and you and yeah, great things to come. So welcome to the podcast. I would love to jump right in with what's going on. I even think bypass everybody. If they don't know who Keeping Current Matters in, they either just got their license, and I think just hearing you talk about what's going on, they'll start to figure it out. So let's jump right in and talk about what the heck is going on in the market.
Yeah, sure. It's feels like the last few weeks, and certainly the time we're in right now, feeling a little bit of a shift in the market. Let's talk about that. And I love the fact that you mentioned, anybody that has questions, let's be interactive. I'm going to get all these slides back over to you, Curtis. I'm going to share a couple, visually. We believe at KCM that, a picture does, so much to communicate a message. And so I think the one thing, I brought one slide I want to sort of share is this one on interest rates. And that's been the story of the market, certainly since the beginning of the year. And if you bring that slide up, it's a look at, going back to the last week in December to, where we're at right now in, the 30-year fixed rate in this country. We wrapped up the year 3.1% on the 30th of December. And where we at today, just over 5. We've seen a kind of this quick and dramatic rise in interest rates, and a lot of people going, "What's happened?" If you see here, something I would draw out real quick is we saw this rise up until about I'm going to call it the April, and we've sort of plateaued. Okay, 5.1, 5.2, now back down to 5.1, the latest on the 30-year fixed in this country. That's caused this, sort of question. Are homes affordable anymore? It's harder to afford a home across the country, and sort of this shock to the real estate system, I would say, and caused many people to have these concerns. You can bring that slide back down, but that's really what's driving a lot of the questions in real estate right now. A couple of things I would bring to that. right near the average 30-year fixed, 5.1%. It is higher than where we've been in the last decade. I think we have to acknowledge that as we're talking to clients. But here's an interesting fact. It's lower on average than where we've been every decade prior than that, going back to the 70s. And I think sometimes we sort of use this analogy in our business of like, well, interest rates were 1,000% back, should this rate. Well, we need to acknowledge that over the last 10 years, we're higher than where we are, and people feel that. But certainly, when you look at it historically, we're still in a very good interest rate environment.
Right. So let me regurgitate some of the things that I'm hearing agents saying or asking, especially consumers, or they're saying, here's what our consumers are saying. Excuse me, is they're saying, yeah, that's all great. I know that even 10 years ago, interest rates were lower, or 10 years before they were higher. But when you compare the cost of the home to where salaries are, it's a moot conversation. It just doesn't matter what the interest rate anymore. It's all about what is my payment for the house that I get to live in. And does that play into what people are seeing, or is there false perceptions out there?
Well, I think there are a couple of things. Certainly, if you qualified for, let's say, any amount on January 1st, and you're qualifying for that amount on a mortgage today, there's shock in real dollars on that, right? I mean, literally, you may not be able to qualify for what you did back in January. That's a challenge for a lot of people.
Yep.
I think the overall conversation and what I'm seeing in the market, people that we're talking to, is, I don't worry about the higher end of the market right now. There are certainly affordability challenges, and just like we talked about, I worry more about the lower end of the market right now. I worry about people getting into homes that are affordable, and that they can buy that first time home that they want to have. I'm more worried about that. But certainly the market, if we look at in April, the most recent data we have, homes were on the market for an average of 17 days. With 5.5 offers on every house. So that is a challenge, but it's not slowing the consumer down in what they're buying.
Very interesting. Mm-hmm. So what does it then mean for the future then? I mean, if things are slowing down, that there's still this unknown, and what's going to happen?
So I think that is the question. So here would be if I was talking to somebody right now, and they're thinking about buying, they're thinking about selling, what's the impact of this scenario in real estate? Is rising interest rates are starting to moderate the market. Okay, if you want to, and I'm going to show you a couple of slides here in just a minute, but I really believe the story right now, if we can cut through, everything, you pick up your phone and you open a news app and it says, is the housing market going to crash, or is the housing market peaked, or whatever, you just about can't go onto a news site without seeing something in the housing market. We're heading to a place that was very similar to where we were pre-pandemic. And, we have to sort of think about this as, if I were to make an analogy, last couple of years, we've seen so much business and so much activity. It's like going down the highway and going 120 or 130 miles an hour, and then, seeing an officer up on the hill and slowing down to maybe 60 or 70 miles an hour, and you feel like you're crawling, but you're actually doing the speed limit. It's sort of, what's happening in our business right now. And I brought a couple of graphics to visualize that. If you bring up let's go to that's the interest rate one. Go to slide number 3. This is a look at showing time. Most recent March data. It's the most recent they have out. We'll get, April and May when that comes out. So hold on there. But that line I've drawn across the middle there is pre-pandemic demand. Okay, so we've seen demand in the last couple of years shoot up for a number of different reasons. Interest rates fell to historic lows. The meaning of home changed for every one of us across the country. And we just saw this frenzy in the market. But where are we heading? We're heading back somewhere to where we were pre-pandemic. So we just sort of, in a mindset, need to remember that. Now, what's been the big headline has been existing home sales are down, right? So let's take a look at that. Let's look at the next slide. This is look at existing home sales by year. They release that every month at an seasonally adjusted rate. What came out in April? 5.6 million on a seasonally adjusted rate. Where is that? Right in line with where we were prior to the pandemic. So we're sort of coming out of this market that's been historical, and we probably have overused that word with the pandemic and everything happening, but into a little bit more moderated market due to the rise in interest rates.
Very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So what about a crash then, Dave?
Well, I think there are a lot of people that are wondering about that, and we've written extensively about this. You mentioned the Kcm blog. If there was one thing I would tell you, if you're not doing this right now, sign up for the Kcm blog. You can go to kcmblog.com, put your email address in, do it for free. And you'll get that blog post every morning in your email box. Done extensive work on that. Few things that I would draw out about that, and I'll show you a graphic here in just a little bit, because it sort of leads into another topic. Is if you go all the way back to World War II, that was the beginning of the modern day housing boom. Think about GIs coming back from the war, and the GI Bill, which provided education. It provided the home loan program, the VA home loan. Anybody that served, certainly we want them to take advantage of that benefit for their service. But that was the modern day housing boom. There's been one time during that time span where homes lost significant value, and that was back in 2008 in the housing crisis. Now, the interesting thing is that was driven by two predominant factors. First one were lending standards. There were loans in the market back then that simply don't exist today. You think about no income, no job, no verification. We don't need it. Things have changed, and we know how that turned out through the housing crisis. The second reason that we ended up in the situation we were in was people, the equity had their homes, and there was a term back then, equity harvesting. You take the equity from your home, they would reposition it into an investment into, maybe buying jet skis, going on vacation, financing lifestyle, if you will, thinking this will never end, and we know it ended badly. And so, if you take that as a known back to this long value, we're in a very different situation today. What do we know? We know that according to First American, the average equity on a home in this country is over $300,000 right now. I mean, nobody's walking away from $300,000. What do we know? We have a severe undersupply of homes. If anybody had to sell their home today, they're going to sell it quickly, and in a lot of cases at or above list price. So there are options today for people that they didn't have back in the housing crisis. We can say through the mortgage program, demand is real today, where I would argue demand was inflated back in the crisis due to all the loans that were in the market. So very, very different scenario today than what we saw, back in 2008. So I would say, what experts are saying is there is not a crash in housing coming. Now, let's talk about that. Everybody, I think, wants to, Curtis, talk about what's the black swan event that could show up that could cause that. I want to be clear. The fundamentals in housing don't show any signs of a crash, and you can find a lot of evidence in the market to support that.
It was going to be my next question, because even Brad Korn, hey Brad, good to see you on the podcast. Mm-hmm. I know Brad, and he's saying he saw a graphic recently that showed that house prices, gas, well, there it is. Gas, housing prices, all this stuff is up 20, 35%, but interest rates are below. But the first part of his comment there is what people are saying. They go, great, housing fundamentals are looking good, but we pump $5 trillion into the economy. Sure. Gas prices are crazy, and we're mostly comparing to gas prices at their very lowest when no one was driving during the pandemic, and gas prices were low. But But even that huge gap, I mean, grocery bills, my family, all the time is like, wow, it's, we're feeling all of this stuff. So yeah, I would love to get into how does that play in and affect the fundamentals of real estate, and then how does the market look for us as we move forward?
Yeah, I think that comes into what you believe about inflation, what do you believe about the market, and all of those types of things. If you think about that first graphic that I showed that shows interest rates rising, and now we've sort of been in a several week time period of them plateauing. Again, I'm going to call 5%, 5.1, 5.2 in that area. We've sort of plateaued right there. There are two things that I would absolutely tell you about the cost of a home and financing. Ultimately that's the carrying cost of a home. One, experts that study the market and study the mortgage market, they don't know what's coming. I'll guarantee you that, because we watch a lot of them here at Keeping Current Matters. The other thing I will absolutely guarantee you is what the market is looking for is a little bit of good news. And there's a lot of evidence to suggest that. So let me give you an example. What do you believe about inflation? Well, the market's looking for us to sort of say we've peaked in inflation, right? And so all right, what do you believe? I believe ultimately the Fed will get inflation under control. With this amount of time, whether that's 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, whatever it is, I don't think it's going to go away overnight, but I think it will be solved. All right, in geopolitical instability, specifically the war in Ukraine, what do you believe about that? We're looking for some resolution in that, and certainly for the human beings involved in that, our hearts go out to them. All right, you take the Fed, their action. So there are all these pieces that come into play that I think, as I look at experts and what they're saying, is that this rise in interest rates has been to combat inflation. That'll be solved over time. So I guess the perspective I would bring to that, Curtis, is this too shall pass. Like, this will be something that we will get through. Now, I'm not sitting here saying I think the bottom's going to drop out in rates. I don't believe that, but I don't think we're going to continue on this upward climb.
Right. Well, let me jump in, because I think we have a question from Diana who said what type of agent. We haven't even we're now past the comment where we're saying, well, we don't. It doesn't look like there's going to be a crash, but what type of agent do you see being successful? And I would add, I would change her question. Sorry, Diana, but as we move forward, and something that I'll never forget about the first time I ever met Steve at a conference and heard him. This is right when things were starting to go bad, like in 08, 07, late 07, 08, in some markets. And he talked about, he made this analogy of a kid in a bed, and the parent comes in and doesn't just say, don't worry about it, things are great. They get down and look under the bed and tell their kid there's no monster. And I think what I'm hearing and what you're saying is, like, the market wants to hear good news. They want to do this. And I think, to answer both Diana and bring into what you're saying, is the most successful agents are not hiding from the questions.
Sure.
Right. They're using great material from KCM, and they're talking to people and saying, look, all of these things, but let me share the good news in it all. Let me share, what the positive things that are happening in the world, and bringing that comfort to theirs is essentially what I'm hearing. So,
I think there was an article written the last couple of weeks. I can't remember if it was somewhere, and it basically said the number one rule of a crash or a correction is you don't talk about it. I don't know if you saw that. It was out there. And listen, in our business, there's a lot of truth to that. I guess my point would be, in what we would say at KCM, is what's the agent of the future going to look like? And it's this: it's the educated agent that becomes the teacher. Right. So let me just give you an example. Somebody sends you an article and they say, and the title of the article is "Housing Crash Coming Soon," or whatever, type of clickbait article that could be sent out. I would engage in that. I'd say, hey, first question I would ask, first, just a little helpful advice. First question I would always ask when somebody asks me that is, did you read the article? Did you take the time and read the article? If they didn't, they're going to read it right then if they want to engage with you.
Right.
Because most people don't. We live in a society that says, I'm going to read the headline, which is built to grab your attention. I'm not going to read the substance of the article. And then you go and you read the article, then I can have a conversation with you. And I think that's what you're talking about
Right.
in that, Curtis. Well, I read that, let's take a real life example. Population in this country we're not growing in population as much as we used to be. And we're building more and more homes in this country. Is that going to be an issue down the road? Great question.
Yeah.
Let's engage on that. And I think that's the agent of the future that's not scared to have that conversation, but is well equipped. And here's the word I would use. They have a relevant market opinion based upon fact. They have their opinion built, but they back it up by facts. And that's what we all want.
Yeah. I love that. If people are listening, you should write that one down. Larry Reed, thanks for the comment. He said the same thing you just did. He said, the agents with knowledge will survive. The agents with knowledge will be successful. So
Yeah.
I think it's that taking that knowledge and then being able to articulate that to help people move forward, to help consumers move forward in what they want to do is the key. I didn't mean to take the conversation off tangent. I want to make sure we get to see all the slides and again, give some of that knowledge to the consumers. So where did I take it off track? Where do you want to get back to here?
Let's kind of bring it full circle. Let's go back to what we talked about, rising cost in our business, which is directly related to interest rates. That's going to come into what do you believe? And if you want to know what I believe, we're starting to plateau out as we start to see good information come. I'm going to call it good information the market wants to hear.
Right.
See a little bit of relief in those rates. I don't think we're going back to where we were, back during the pandemic, but probably off those highs that most experts would say between 5 and 6%. We'll see though. We'll see what comes in that direction. But the biggest sort of fever pitch right now in the media is about recession, right? So what does recession mean to housing? I will tell you this. Every time a consumer hears recession, they think housing crisis.
Right.
Because we think about, okay, what happened back in 08, and we talked about that previously, and everyone in our business has talked about that. But there's, this feeling of, gosh, homes have appreciated at an unreal rate over the last couple of years. This doesn't feel good. We're going to go into a recession. Oh, by the way, last time housing crashes. If I wasn't in the business, I would be thinking that.
Right.
Let me just say that. Okay. So what our team went and did, and it's the last slide that I have, I think it's number 8, if you want to show that, is we went and looked at the last 6 recessions in this country and what happened to home prices during those recessions. What we quickly proved is that recession doesn't mean housing crisis, and recession doesn't mean that homes are going to lose value. As a matter of fact, in 4 of the last 6 recessions, going back to the early 80s, homes actually appreciated during those times. In one time in the early 90s, marginal depreciation there, less than 2%. But what everybody remembers is back in 2008, when homes lost 20%. It was a devastating time for folks in the business, folks that had to make different decisions and walk away, sell a home, go through some type of distress sale in a home. And people remember that. And they look at what's going on today and they think, it feels eerily the same. And I think we have to engage in that and give them the facts. Curtis, I'm going to give everybody, if they want these slides, use those wherever you want to. On maybe you make a video, maybe you put it on social media, maybe you just, have that on your phone as somebody asks you that question, and you can give them the truth about it, about, in this case, recession, but certainly anything that we're talking about.
Well, and this is a challenge. Even in our industry, people, when we talk about foreclosures, the immediate thing is, short sales. But like you said, $300,000 in equity, there's a lot of equity in homes. Nobody's short selling their house right now, but we get caught up in the meaning of words like recession and things that I think do cause problems. And I think that's good. I think that there's a lot of people out there that are hoping for pricing to go down. I think a lot of people who want to buy or invest and are like, oh, I'm just waiting.
Yeah.
And so I think having the facts to then form an opinion. Say that line again, David.
It's having a relevant market opinion based upon facts.
I love
And the
that.
reason I say that is there are a lot of opinions in our business. There are a lot of them. Very few of them are based upon facts, right? You have an opinion based upon what your uncle said or what you believe to be true, but you have a relevant market opinion based upon facts. And something I want to say about the specific foreclosure scenario in this country. Back in '08, I worked for the largest holder of distressed assets in this country, foreclosed properties. And a strategy back then was to become an REO agent and be able to deliver those houses to the market. I want to be clear. I don't believe that's a strategy that's coming up. I don't believe there's going to be this influx in any shape, form of foreclosed properties coming to market. And I'll give you a couple of facts about that. But I think there are scenarios where there are banks right now. I've heard of this with agents saying, hey, this is a home that could go into default. Do you mind reaching out? They would love for that to not be an issue for them, right? They'd love for it to get taken care of and move on. When we entered the pandemic, we said there is no limit to what banks and the federal government will do to avoid what happened in 2008. And you're seeing that play out now.
Right.
I think the conversation down the road will be, did we do too much? And back in '08, we didn't do enough. And there's an economic term or phrase they always say, you learn how to fight the last war, right? So we sort of fought this war based on that mentality. And here are two facts that blow me away every time I share them. First, 4 out of 5 people that have come out of forbearance over the last couple of years, and this is going all the way back to the start, cumulative numbers, 4 out of 5, either paid off their loan through a sale or whatever the case may be, or they went through a workout with their bank. They tacked it on, the deferral and tacked it onto the back, or they did some type of rate and term refinance. 4 out of 5.
Yeah,
you're not turning on the TV.
Positive outcome. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to turn on the TV and hear that tonight on the nightly news. I mean, that's great news, right? 4 out of 5 people either didn't need it or worked it out with their bank. The other fact is, in the first quarter of this year, foreclosure activity is running at about 60% of what it was pre-pandemic. Now, we're going to continue to see that rise as they work through some folks that do have issues. We don't wish that upon anyone, but it's a fact in our business. But what you're going to see in the headlines is foreclosures are up for the 4th month in a row. Foreclosures are up 1 billion% over last year. And people are going to think that. That's why I think, going back to what we talked about, being the educated agent that's out front saying, hey, here's what's happening in the market, doing what you and I are doing. Think about technology today. You can do a podcast and educate your agents. You can record a video and educate your agents. You can get this message out there. And I think that's our job,
Yeah. Well, and it goes back to, the headlines right now that flood our lives in social media and in news feeds and everything are the monsters underneath the bed,
right?
That we have to be the ones to explain or get under. But you also have to have a relevant opinion based on fact. And just to give a plug for you guys, if somebody's even wondering, at least go subscribe to the blog and read that every day. Just like I tell my employees, you'll have more knowledge about what's going on in the marketplace with a lens that I think is healthy, right? It's not, I think it's the facts, and I think it gives you a healthy opinion to be able to share and overcome that fear of the headlines.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the thing about that, and again, you go sign up for the blog, get it in your email box every morning. You don't have to subscribe to KCM to do that. But I tell people that are new in the business, go do that. Do that for a few weeks, a couple of months. You'll know what's going on in real estate. You'll have a perspective. And listen, you don't have to agree with everything that I say, but you do have to have a relevant market opinion today. And I think it's been true during COVID, what we're coming out of. People are looking for that advice. People in the world today don't know what to believe. That's the
Right.
truth about anything out there. And so I think if we can position ourselves as that, and that's not going away into the future, it's going to be very, very advantageous.
Yeah. Well, I love it. And just to wrap things up for listeners here, there is we could do a whole nother podcast about the agent of the future, and
Sure.
it's what I love to get into is the marketing and messaging of what's going on. But if you look at the buying demographics and how they're changing to millennials and even Gen Z as they come up as the buying demographic, they want more than ever a human involvement when something's highly complex and highly emotional.
Yeah.
So they're online and doing all this. Well, things get really emotional when it comes to the greatest asset that they're trying to buy or sell. So certainly the agent of the future, and with where things are going, this is so relevant what we're talking about. And if you take a lot from this, and we're going to get the slides from that, we'll share that out. And we'll give some websites here that you can go to make sure that you subscribe to Keeping Current Matters. But the other thing that I hope that people take from the conversation is that, to the agent of the future is that relevant opinion based on a relevant opinion of the market based on facts. You can get the facts from Keeping Current Matters, and you can help the people who are buying and selling the greatest asset in their life.
Yep.
David, any last thoughts you want to share with everybody before we log off here?
Listen, I think the first, thank you for having me on. Thank you for the support that REDX has always given what we do here at KCM. We're grateful for that and grateful for our long partnership. Here's what I would say. In the world today, going back to what we just talked about, people don't know what to believe. Headlines do more to terrify people than to clarify what's actually going on. And I believe that the good news is we can do that. We can bring the truth and the facts to the clients we serve, and they will see us as the expert in the market. So that's our goal, and we have your back as you do that. And so any way we can help, we're always here to do that for you.
Right. David, everybody, David Childers, thank you so much for coming on. You can find more about them. We're going to post there. It's keepingcurrentmatters.com. And we will make sure that we get that link out to everybody. If you're listening, watching, if you've downloaded this after we played it live, make sure to come and continue the conversation with us on the Facebook group, the Lead Gen Conversation, where we can continue to keep talking. Or if you're a customer, you can always jump on the forum, the customer forum at forum.theredx.com. So make sure you check out all of our upcoming podcasts. We'll be sure to have Keeping Current Matters again. That's at redx.com/podcasts. Again, David, thank you so much. And we will see everybody next time.
Thank you.